meeting. And call this meeting to order. Jay, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next step is to approve our meeting minutes from last time. They've been posted out there for a while now. Can I get a, what's the word I'm looking for, folks?
Motion.
Thank you, not nomination. I'm gonna get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Second. Okay, we'll vote to approve the minutes from our February meeting.
Aye.
All right, they are approved. And is our,
Are we allowing online voting today too?
so I'm gonna walk us through that. So yeah, through the process of, if anybody's worried about how the elections will go, we will go through the slides, really the same ones we went through in February, but it's a good refresher just to say how we're gonna do this, as we do it. So get you up to date there. Is our officer liaison here? Okay, that's okay. Officer Christian, I think, right? Great. So he's not here tonight. That's okay. So we'll start with committee reports. I don't have any for the web manager. Jessica, do you want to?
Yes.
And if you want to move ahead there to this slide.
You want me? Oh, I was just gonna do for web manager, but I could.
Oh, if you can do either one, go ahead. I would love it.
Sure. So we were able to renew our website subscription for the next 2 years. I was able to secure a 50% off deal with our domain provider, Wix. So yay for that, saved half the money that we would have had to pay. And then we also had our website domain fee, which is a little bit extra because we go with the .org domain versus a different type. That's maybe a little harder to use. So our account balance now as of today is $276.16. And the latest newsflash is we did receive a $50 donation tonight via check. So that will be going in for the next meeting updates. So website's going really well, getting lots of traffic on there, and we're all set for the next 2 years. So thank you.
Yay. On here, we have land use next, and it says Jay next to it, but we have Heidi, who we've appointed as our land use chair now. So I'm gonna let Heidi give an update. Yay, welcome, Heidi.
Yeah. Okay, this is really quick because I'm just getting up to speed. So a lot of projects in our neighborhood association are actually on hold right now. So we're keeping an eye on those to see if any of them move. Three Creeks North is going through zone changing. I don't have a lot of info on that. There's an RV park here at the fairgrounds that is going through pre-app. And I'm just trying to get up to speed on how projects are moving from one stage to another because they kind of drop off from list to list. So
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Bob, would you like to give us an update on transportation committee?
Well, there really isn't much. There isn't much to say. Like, for instance, all of the things are pretty much on hold. I haven't seen anything new come out of the Clark County or Department of Transportation. So I'd say the things that are ongoing are a lot of them are on hold, like 179th Street. And, so really not a lot is happening.
why is it on hold? Why is it on hold?
Well, I think the main reason a lot of these things are on hold is high interest. And there hasn't been the development. Without development, there's no need to expand the traffic system. And the way it works, the developer pays for the road widening.
Right.
So bottom line is no developers, no road widening. So we're pretty much on hold.
So nothing has
Yes,
What's the time frame for improving the 179th Street I-5 interchange?
it's on hold. They haven't announced the timeframe. And
That's not waiting the development, is it?
no, but the state's the one that's got it on hold. They're it's just not going ahead. Originally, you know, they were gonna have it going in almost this time frame. I think it was 2025, but they put that off. So right now, I don't know when it's gonna happen.
Has any regarding his I-5 and as well as up north towards 79 or 29, say, have they started any of these projects you're
The
discussing?
intersection at 50th is in the review process.
Right.
Yeah,
So that one's moving.
Yeah, that one is, I can see that one, but I mean,
yeah, there's quite a bit of time between the review and the actually,
but I'm not talking that far up, I'm talking about 179th and 29th where the new turnabout's gonna be.
oh,
And all the way through to where he's discussing
179th Street.
to
Yeah,
You know,
20
they said that they were gonna do, like 29th Street. In 2024 and 2025, putting the bridges and everything. I haven't heard anything.
Who's they?
Like,
Okay.
On the website, it's showing it's 2025, 2026.
so
Okay,
they
yeah.
put it off a year.
But my question is, has any of this begun, the projects, these two projects that are at home, say, have any works been started where they've had to cease as a result of funding or this or that? So nothing has begun at all.
Nothing. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there isn't any development going on too.
I'm just happy to hear, much like the grid, if, we
Yeah,
were
those bridges are gonna close that for 2 years in succession.
my husband worked on the bridge, situation, and that's just gonna be an ongoing mess for a
Sue's
while.
here, she may have to.
Probably for a year.
I would just suggest if you want to talk about transportation, invite the transportation department to come and give you a briefing, because
That
offhand,
might be a good idea.
I'm not sure about the timing for these things,
Right.
That would be Washington State Department of Transportation.
for the I-5.
Right, and I wasn't looking for that, I'm just looking for,
179th Street.
I just wanted to make sure that, much like many of projects, something starts and then it ceases for some reason or puts on hold. And it seems indefinitely, but the money has already been collected from taxpayers and has already been put in the fund for that. Somehow magically, that when you go to do the project, the money's not there where it was reported. So that was my concern.
Well, I'm not aware.
Should we?
I hadn't looked
That's it.
into that.
So I'm not asking her to refer me to another department. I'm simply asking if it started already. That's it.
Yes,
And my comment might dovetail into the transportation. My name is David, and I'm representing the Woodward Big Adventist Church, just on the other side of the road. This is my first meeting, people. But months ago, we had the big meeting downtown Vancouver. I stayed afterwards, talked to the people responsible for the 179 project and everything, and asked specifically, how is this going to, what's going to happen to our church, the road out here? And he told me at that time, 6 years down the road. So at this point, nothing is going to happen. And so he gave me the timetable of 6 years. I don't know if anything has transpired that, set that different, but that's what I was told at that point.
But that's just one aspect of it, agreed. You know, that we're not talking about elaborating on a subject matter that's not the topic today, but the fact remains, I don't want to be dismissed to have to be referred to another person. I assume the same respect that not caught up later by someone else. I already have done that, so that's why I'm here tonight, to ask my own questions because the matter of runaround given throughout the community.
But we
So
don't
I
know.
didn't have a right to be here and ask those questions.
Oh, absolutely, but
And I appreciate not being referred to another entity.
We're just neighbors, just like you.
Yeah.
So we don't have all that information. We don't work for the county.
No, I
We don't
understand.
have any of that.
Yeah,
So
but I don't have the answers to the questions.
Then you
you're
need to just
asking.
stay in your lane and let them handle it. That's my point. You don't need to step up and refer me to another place. I understand recognition, so please just keep moving forward.
That would be the place where you.
I know where I can find it.
As a compromise,
Committee report. So we're kind of,
as a compromise, it was, Councilor Marshall suggested having someone from the department of,
Yeah.
from the transportation department of the county come.
Yeah.
So I would say, I'd like to make a motion, let's
Yeah.
do that and have them come next week.
there's a motion seconded. Okay, so, do we want to?
Can I say something?
Sure. Well, actually, there's a motion seconded. We have to.
Oh, I just want to speak to the motion as soon as you're.
Okay. So seconded motion, so we've got a vote. So, vote to have what?
Well, I know.
Sorry. Oh, discussion. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna quickly, I'm new, this is my first meeting, I live in Mountain Vista, and I, was a neighborhood association officer in Nehaha, and when we had some traffic issues, we brought them forward several times, and it worked. I mean, the more you, and this is a bigger project than that was on a traffic signals, but I really think that's gonna be powerful, so thank you for the motion, I
Well,
encourage you to vote.
If you look at the newscaster list and the times and things to do all this involves different things we're supposed to be discussing regarding taxes and safety and all these different things, which should involve those people. So asking it to be taken to another, someone pass it off to another person you have to talk to, and it's not if this isn't where we're discussing it, it should be a part of this because it affects
So-
the agenda that we're doing.
This is committee reports.
I
The
know.
agenda is out.
I know.
So that's all we're trying to do at this point. We do have a section here for resident announcements. And that's when we were intending to talk about this. So I'm not trying to shut you down
Oh, you are.
also. Okay, so let me just say that. And I appreciate the input and I would love to hear about your specific issues too, because it's, yeah, we can have folks out. So, so I guess I'm not sure if we should take a vote on Washington.
Is there any
We'll
more
just-
discussion?
Is there any more discussion on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to contribute that. I think Ken Later is awesome. I think he would be great. We haven't had anybody from Washington. I think it'd be great to have more of these folks in the neighborhood because we as residents don't have answers to these things. And so awesome to have more county staff, and I think that's the goal of this whole group, and yay.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to also weigh in that in the past, we have had people from the county come here the last year or so. One is community development. In the past, we had Scott Sawyer from the county come and talk about the 179 Portland projects. I don't think we've ever had Washington State Department of Transportation.
I don't think we have.
So, it's awesome if we could bring the agencies here so we could have a chance to do the Q&A with them. I think that's a great opportunity.
Great. In Q&A, so here's the question they'll ask me, I think, is, well, what do you want us to talk about? So are we just talking about 179?
That's.
Well, there are two interchange changes, 179 and Highway 502.
Right, I would too, okay. And what else do we want to hear about?
Well, the other thing is, there's a big project coming up that was in the paper yesterday, I think, to replace the concrete panels on I-5. That is the reason why they lowered the advisory speed to 60. So that might be the hook to have them come in and talk about what we're going to change in that project.
I think we need to pass the motion.
First.
Well, I mean, we can vote on it. It's, hear from you guys. I think realistically, if I'm, we can vote to bring some folks out, and I think it's really an executive board decision. We'll just do it. If you want to vote on it, we can vote.
We have to vote on this motion. It was a motion, so they got to vote on this
Okay.
motion.
Vote to bring WashDOT out to a meeting
And county transportation.
and county transportation. And so we're getting this in notes then. Okay, great. All those in favor? And all those opposed? None opposed, and online, yeah, I don't know, we'll have to figure out how we're gonna vote. Stuff like that.
And Andrew, if you want to gather questions, then I'll coordinate with Ken and I'll make sure that you get all the right people here.
Okay. Gather questions,
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
If you have people send their questions into you
Okay,
of what they want answered, then I'll make sure you get the right people here to answer the questions that they're asking ahead
okay,
of time. If you can get people sending in the questions
so that's,
on
so
email.
I think you're kind of making a great point actually right now. So I would have loved to have that question via email and any of the questions that are coming up now. If we can get those via email rather than, right, I'm up here under the spotlight. And so, right, and so it's kind of tough and we have an agenda already. It's, well, that's one of the things we've asked for at previous meetings actually, is what are you guys interested in? Who do you want to come out and all of that stuff? And so that would really help us to plan if we have that in advance. So please do send me those, send me the questions that you have, send me the agencies you want to talk to.
Andrew, especially,
And it's been passed and.
Yeah, and it's been passed, but I'm just saying, yeah.
especially in this case, since there's multiple agencies involved.
Yep.
If I see the questions, then, there might be somebody else I need to pull in.
Yeah.
To be able to make sure the questions are
For sure.
answered.
So send those questions our way. So continuing on the committee reports, the amphitheater, I'm not going to report on tonight because we have an amphitheater representative at 8:20 who's going to give us tell us where we are. Here I don't see. I don't know if she's online, so that's okay. So why don't we move on to the board elections? You want to move us through, really? So all board roles are up for election annually. That means tonight you can replace anybody on the board or get into a seat that doesn't have a person in it. So it includes the executive board and committee chairs. We'll have a list of what that looks like in a minute. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Any resident can nominate themselves or another resident. And eligible candidates may be nominated at any time. I have a little during this meeting. Do we have any nominations for roles right now?
What are the roles?
Okay, good question. Yeah, so roles, executive board are, and we will have a slide that shows them, but I could probably name them off offhand. President, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. We do need a secretary. Jessica's been filling in as secretary and treasurer, so we can set up that. Land use, transportation use. We have also the web manager, the amphitheater liaison, and these are kind of the primary ones. You might be missing something. Oh, volunteer coordinator would be a useful role. So the main four ones are president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. That's what it takes to run the whole organization, and the rest we kind of fill as needed and as people show up and volunteer. So you guys can nominate at any time, so we'll keep moving through that if we can have the next slide. So if we do have a nomination, folks can introduce themselves, provide a statement. We'll try to keep it to 2 minutes, but generally give some background information, what we're interested in, how you approach it, whatever else you want to say. And so the voting process is that we'll do in-person paper ballot only. And the reason is that our bylaw states be by written ballot in the elections section. They say an affirmative vote on ballots cast by a majority of those members in attendance at a general association meeting. So that's you guys here in the room. I apologize to folks online if you thought that you'd be able to vote tonight. If I remember right, when we had the discussion about passing the bylaws to allow digital voting, in that meeting it was decided that we didn't want to do it for the actual election of the board. And the next slide, please. So county process, Jay, I heard you get 2 volunteers, which I really appreciate. We're going to have our 2 volunteers tally the winners and announce them before the meeting is adjourned. I think they'll be able to do it. But if there are any limitations, we'll set a time within 5 days for the count to be completed. Yeah, go ahead.
How much longer is it going to be open that you can vote online? To be able to do that?
I don't understand exactly what you.
No, I mean, we mentioned the last meeting that I was at. We were talking about being able to vote online instead of being here in person. I'm gonna just say.
Go ahead. Yeah, here, let me hand you that.
So we did come up with the ability currently to vote online for things like motions or the auxiliary kind of things. I am contemplating some tools that may allow us, at the time of the next election, general election for board rolls around, to be able to do that. Concern is making sure that they're valid voters and that it's secure, especially for this part. So if we can work through that, then possibly by next year, but in the time frame we have, this is where we want for this one.
And next slide, please, Marilyn. There's your roles here. So President, Vice President, Treasurer, Secretary, Transportation Chair, Web Manager, Land Use Chair, Amphitheater, and Sunshine Chair. I said Volunteer Coordinator. When Kira joined, we kind of created the Sunshine Chair, where she sent thank you letters and probably planning, picnics and some of those other nicer events. So, but we could use a volunteer coordinator as we grow. So, I would nominate myself for president. Merely what we're going to do is stay on that slide, and I'm going to have you fill in names next to those colons if you can.
Oh, okay, hang on a minute. I'm gonna have to stop the slideshow
At the bottom, yeah.
and then I can do that.
Yeah. And I'll just demonstrate what I'm talking about with the 2-minute announcement. So my name is Andrew Checka, and I live at 513 Northwest 184th Street. So just like right there on 184th. I've been in the community here for 5 years. My wife and I bought a farm, and we love it here. We love the rural nature of it, yet being a little bit close. Part of the reason that I joined the association was it felt like the development was happening once that UGA went up, was happening just so furiously, and potentially not planned as well as we wanted. And so I wanted to make sure I got involved to help make sure things, that our community is as good as it can be. So it was very important to me. I've been the president of this organization for the last year, and we have created a website and had I think 6 meetings, 5 or 6 meetings, as well as sent out lots of communication. We're posting land use notices, which was a thing in the past that folks didn't always have available. And so we're trying to get the information out there and hopefully doing a good job for you. It's not just me, it's also the team. But I hope to do more of it for another year. So Vice President, I nominate Jay. Do you want to accept the nomination, Jay? Okay.
Before I jump off, was there anyone else who wanted to nominate themselves or someone else for president?
And last name?
No,
So good.
not I.
So my name's Jason Neal, go by Jay. Been acting vice president since we kicked off. Very similar to Andrew's story. My wife and I have been here about 5 years, 4418 Northeast 179. We bought a small historic farm that needed some renovation and restoration. That's been our project for the last few years. But again, a primary motivator for me to get involved at this level was the vast amount of development that suddenly popped up. Historically, this area has been, agricultural and rural, and all of a sudden, we've got huge subdivisions going in, traffic issues, lots of perceivable concerns. So I'm very pro having a thriving, vibrant community. I'm not opposed to development coming in, but I want to see it, blended well, so that we don't lose those resources, we don't lose our identity and culture. And as those things come on board, they improve our community and not create some kind of detriment. So I've been very happy to serve next to Andrew and continue to do so if I have to.
Yeah.
Are there any more for vice president?
Are there any more for vice president? Well, I would like to nominate Jessica as our treasurer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Lavanis, and I actually live right across the street from Jay on 47th and 179th. And I wanted to be on this board to help make a difference. Like the last 2 folks have said, there's been a lot of development change, lots of new people coming in. Wanted to kind of help be one of the faces of that. I'm really good with money and kind of managing funds in that way. I do a lot of that for myself and just felt like this was kind of the right position for me. I also have been the secretary, as Andrew mentioned. So I've been wearing 2 hats, hoping to only have one this time around as the treasurer. But I do have 4-year-old twin boys. So I'm a mom, I'm very active in the community and wanting this to be a safe place to continue raising them. So thank you.
Do we have any other nominations for treasurer? Do we have anybody that wants to be the secretary? I can have you talk about what these roles look like. The main work that a secretary does is take notes during the meeting and post those. That's pretty much it for the most part. So not a tough job. Anybody want to help out and be a secretary? Tough job. I mean, right, just tell them how you do this.
It's easy.
Okay, great.
It is.
Okay,
It's
great.
just- we wanted to be able to pass around the work and like bring someone else into the opportunity if it was there. If nobody wants to do it, I will continue to do it, but we wanted to give the opportunity. We have this meeting, so about an hour and a half every other month, and then we usually do executive board meetings once a month.
Yeah.
Twice a month.
Once a month is what we've been doing.
So I'd say anywhere from like 3 to 5 hours a month. So.
Yeah, not crazy, not crazy. Yeah, wonderful. Will you say your name? Let me hand you this. Let me hand you this.
Yes, I live, over 5 feet.
Yeah, we use that. Let me put post here on.
County, you live over towards the Meadows. Community. And the, Trailhead Estates. And I just want to get more involved in the changes that are going on.
Great, appreciate it.
And did I get the spelling of your name correct, or is it Kathleen with K or C?
Thanks, Kathleen. Love it. I love it. And Kathleen said she just wants to get involved and help change the community here too. So great. Do we have so our transportation right now is Bob. Bob, do you want to do it again? Sure. All right. Nominate Bob.
I was in the construction industry for more years than I want to remember, and so it's of an interest to me because I'm well familiar with the construction process, having built roads and streets and we built it. So appreciate the opportunity, sir. Program.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm just making sure we're getting all your spellings right as we put them up there. So for our land use chair, I'm going to nominate Heidi.
All right. Hi, Heidi Pozo. I've lived at about 179th and 29th for 16 years. Like everybody else, when the growth came through and we heard about 179, I came to the meetings and I've been coming online to these meetings too. So just want to get involved and help people like you, like all of us, understand what's going on in the community and getting the information. So we're all on top of things and not surprised.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm trying to think. So we don't have any of these other roles filled. The main, Sunshine here, but Kara's not here tonight. The main roles that we need are an amphitheater liaison. Is there anybody for whom the amphitheater is a really important thing? Would maybe want it? Yeah, maybe.
What does the liaison do?
Yeah, so right now, what the liaison would do is join, and this is not required. Let me say it like this. Well, let me tell you what would be required first. So is to work with the amphitheater traffic folks. One of the meetings tonight, they're all very nice and very much want us to be happy with the amphitheater. And just make sure that things are working around here. So right now I'll be working with them to get hang tags, although I think the heavy lifting is done on that, honestly, as well as setting up an alternate route. Again, I think the heavy lifting is done, because I've been working on this stuff. So going forward, it would probably just be making sure things are happy. If there are complaints that come in, try to communicate them back. They have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting that we are invited to join, but not required to join. That is in the, on a weekday at like 10 a.m. or something. So not everybody would even be able to. But so that would be maybe joining the meeting, a little bit of back and forth.
Who are you meeting with?
In those meetings, it is a whole bunch of folks, actually. It's a lot of the names we've been saying tonight. So it's WashDOT and county transportation and the amphitheater traffic managers and sheriffs. And, I think they just have, one person from each of these locations. In the meeting, our role mostly is to listen. So we could share if we had to, but what they're doing in those meetings is the work of making sure everything is functioning. So that's who's in the meeting. I should make that clear, though. It's not like, they've kind of asked us, and I understand this. They were worried that we might have somebody come in and sort of steamroll these working meetings where they really have to get stuff done. So they're not saying be quiet. They're saying please join. You can contribute. Be aware of how much you do. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that was good about that is the 10th Street and 179th, where they were blocking that off. And I don't think that they realized, what they were doing to the rest of the, so this liaison would be really important for that.
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly the kind of thing that they'll be sharing. So go ahead, Kathleen.
That is something that is extremely interesting to me because I have a lot of input, like the agility training and things like that, and a lot of those people. I don't know if that's something that I can also be affiliated with. I understand that for me, and you're just sort of helping along, you get things moving that they already have in place.
To some degree,
Yeah.
I mean, to some degree, yeah, we and we're communicating, back and forth, now it kind of is, right? We did the name tags and the alternate routes, and so now it kind of is just that, yeah. If you're interested, would you like to nominate yourself?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Kathleen's gonna nominate herself.
Does that
for the-
take away from secretary duty?
It does not. People can, we've been doing all of them for the last year, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Would anybody else is anybody interested in the web manager, the other roles? Okay, well, I'm not gonna belabor this and pound you over the head, and I don't have a good sales pitch for them anyway. So, can I get a motion to vote on the
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you nominate Kara even though it's right here?
She would need to be able to accept it.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I don't think so. Can you appoint her once the nominations have been held?
We can appoint any of the roles below the secretary on there.
We don't need to vote if there's nobody that's to be contested. There's nobody being contested.
She makes a great point.
Well, put that in recycling.
Doesn't have names on it, does it?
It does.
It does. Well, all right. She's absolutely right. We don't need to vote on it. Folks, this is your 2024 Four Creeks Neighborhood Association.
Do the bylaws require a majority vote? Because if the bylaws requires a majority vote, you really do have to. I don't know what the bylaws.
Let's do it anyway. Let's do it anyway. Well, after I'm looking at another round of applause.
All right.
Andrew, I really want to thank you guys because I was from the past and you guys have done a remarkable job putting it together. And it's not that I'm glad that you're doing it again for another session because I think that's important.
Thank you.
Don't want to tell more information. And anyway, you've done a great job.
Well, we really appreciate it. I think we're all feeling like we're hitting our stride too. Really.
Did everyone get one? All right.
You've got just a general board member on the ballot sheet, but you didn't talk about that.
I know.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
If you have a role in county or you want to be doing something.
Yeah, yeah, you can put it, yeah.
So if there isn't something on here for like land use share, we're turning it over and deciding.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, well, I thought we were gonna do blank. Okay.
Land use chair is not on this. You want to put that instead of public safety committee?
Let's go ahead and
Oh,
do
it's
that.
on there.
Land
Yeah,
use
Oh, it is? Okay.
And what about the
Okay, thank you.
But we don't have amphitheater, so yeah, let's change public safety to the amphitheater.
Yeah, go ahead and cross the safety and put in amphitheater.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. What did we do about the land use share? And then.
Oh, land use chair is on.
All right.
Are we still allowed to help collect?
Whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, no, she used to be the amphitheater and the secretary.
Stressed out the
Northeast.
I'm right by where the road goes.
Okay. Yeah, when people talk about distances, there's 50 that way.
That's true.
We have Carol
Yeah.
Lupke for Sunshine Chair. Is she?
She's not here though, so I think,
Correct,
I don't think we can vote for them,
Okay.
so,
correct.
yeah, that's.
Okay.
I think our bylaws are that you have to physically be here to accept it, but I mean, we can talk to her and appoint her later, so
We can. If she was online, we could, get her, but yeah. Go ahead.
So there's a board member, general manager, protecting their balance. What is that?
So we were all sick in the last week or so and didn't do a great job of updating our policies. So I'm just gonna admit the truth. So the general board member is not a thing we had. It's a thing we tried to do last year. It's not a thing. Yeah, it's not a thing. And just to be, super transparent about why that is that it's really easy to say, I want to be a general board member. And then what do? We don't even really, right? We don't really know. So.
This is easy, so.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some more over here.
Oh, you're way ahead of the game. Thank you. All right.
Right.
Yes.
All right, everyone's in. I counted.
Check if I will.
Boxes. We've got our 2 volunteers. There you go. Wonderful.
I would suggest that, unless there's any controversy or anyone's written someone in, that we don't count, but just check the ballots first.
Great. Yeah. Should we, I was gonna say, should we vote on that? But I think I agree with that because really we're just trying to get the ballots.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we
Right.
should move on. Just we're out.
Just need a majority, so yeah, I'm welcome.
Great. Well, and we'll find out what happened here at the end too. They'll let us know. So, great. Next up, we got Randy is going to talk about the Port of Ridgefield Tax Increment Financing. Randy, please come on down and get the microphone.
Randy. I've never been to your association meeting. This is a blast. My name is Randy Bueller. I'm with the Port of Ridgefield. We are a port district. There's 3 in Clark County. There's us, Port of Vancouver, and Port of Kamaswashugo. Our boundaries, if you're just wondering if you're in the 98642 zip code or the Ridgefield School District, you're in the Port District. So you've probably seen us on your property tax bill. I know my house property taxes are about $3,000, of which the port's about $100. So we're not one of the bigger ones. We're one of the smaller. We're called a junior taxing district. So that's what we are. Just wanted to go through. We're kind of making the rounds and talking to folks about something called tax increment financing. We can go to the next slide. So there's what we'll talk about. Next slide. So here is, if you're familiar, that's the Ridgefield waterfront, the old historic home of the Port of Ridgefield. It's where we started. It's where there's a very large environmental cleanup process. We'll talk a little bit about that. We can go to the next slide. So what is tax increment financing? In short, it is a funding tool that the state legislature created 2 years ago. We are one of the last states to get it. We're the 49th state to get tax increment financing. I think there's still one more holdout, but everybody, the other 48 states have already had tax increment financing on the books. So it is not a new tax. So when you hear about us enacting tax increment financing in an area, you as a taxpayer, your taxes don't go up or down as a result of this. It's net neutral on the person paying their property taxes. It is what we essentially do is cities, counties, and ports are the three entities that can do one of these, and they do them to fund important projects for their organizations. And for the port, we'll talk a little bit about the projects that we're looking at. You essentially establish a tax increment area, and then that for 25 years, the property taxes. Actually, we'll go to the next slide and talk about that. So here we go. This is probably the better way to show it. So, for example, if your house, whatever you're paying in property taxes right now, if you are inside a tax increment area when it's enacted, your property tax bill, where it shows like the split, how much goes to the different agencies, that essentially stays the same for the next 25 years. And the incremental value, basically if the property goes up in value and pays more taxes, that goes to the projects in the increment area. In 25 years, it cuts off, and then the taxes resume going to the jurisdictions they normally would have. So that's in a nutshell how that works. So the property taxes that are currently on a property, those are going to be going to the same agencies and the same amounts for the next 25 years, with a couple exceptions, and we'll talk about that. Schools are exempted. Was that a question?
I was going to ask if you want questions now or at the end.
Let's try it.
Okay. So I was looking at this, and it's an interesting process. I looked at the map that you've got, and that area is I guess it's already zone light industrial and so forth. So as we move forward and that area develops, it's like 2-lane country roads and so forth right now. What I'm curious about is, as you draw the line and then you get at the port, you get the what growth happens in terms of tax.
Right.
And we're thinking about, gosh, this area, the roads are, they need development and we need services out here. And I know the schools are not included, but what I'd like to understand is how this is going to impact the county for some of the services that are going to be needed in this area as it grows.
Sure. So we got a couple slides that will address that. So hang tight. Let's go to the next slide. One more. So, okay, here's that map we're talking about. So this is a proposed tax increment area. So the way the legislation works is every city, county, or port can do 1 or 2 tax increment areas. But together, they can't add up to more than $200 million in current assessed value. The port of Ridgefield is actually choosing to do it in one. And this is really more for administrative purposes. We could have set it up with 2 separate increment areas for 200 million, but we've joined them via essentially going up Hillhurst and connecting them with what I could call cherry stem. But that's really for purposes. So the 2 areas, one is really the Ridgefield waterfront and the downtown. And the second one is really the 179th interchange and then the 10th corridor up to 219th. In the areas around those. We did drop out some parcels. Some of that was specifically to not take everything that's paying taxes and leave some revenue generators for the agencies that are working down here and serving down here. Next slide.
Coming back to that slide, I have a question what that vertical line meant. You know, you have Northwest 31st Avenue. So it says that's a boundary. So is the part west of that in the boundary or the part east of that in the boundary?
The road is the boundary. So when you connect them, what we're doing is we're using the right of way as that's inside the tax increment area. So it's very narrow.
So I'm questioning, if you go, 209 is the horizontal one with the U in it.
Mhm.
Now, if you go up north of 209 and to the right of 31st, is that in the boundary or outside the boundary? Same thing to the left of 31st.
Where are we talking? Move my arrow up, down, left, right. Which way, where are we talking about?
Is this in the boundary for taxation?
No.
Is this in the boundary for taxation?
No.
Or is only the
gold
brown?
Brown is the tax increment area. So these are the two areas.
So I think I can paraphrase what you're trying to say,
Sure.
which is that the road is two lines and everything inside each side of the road is inside of it, and it's connecting that top.
Think of this as a barbell.
So that,
Two thick ends and a thin connector.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So I live on 10th Avenue within the shaded area. So my taxes are gonna stay the same for 25 years until somebody comes in and buys it to develop, right?
No, your taxes won't change. They're gonna go up like they normally would. The distribution of them changes. So right now, what you're paying, that gets frozen, and then everybody that gets certain amounts, the county gets a chunk, those keep going in those same directions. But as your property climbs in value, or if you were to build a hotel on your property, the extra would go to the increment projects. So, but your taxes don't. So nobody is a taxpayer. Your taxes don't go up or down. It's just a question. The state has created this program to reallocate these funds from going from one agency or jurisdiction to another.
So is there a document that shows what those increments are?
Well, we don't know. I don't know, for example, what if you're going to build a hotel in 10 years or how much your property will climb in value. So, all right, next slide.
Randy?
Yes.
Is the road itself part of the tax increment district?
It is.
But how far out on either side?
I think just the whatever's on the right of way, whatever's in the parcel, and it has no taxable value, so it's it doesn't figure into the calculations.
But it makes for one.
Right. It allows you to draw one line, draw a line around. So just wanted to really quickly, because a lot of folks aren't familiar with the port and some of the projects we've done, and so wanted to go through and talk about some of these just really quickly as an example. One of them, if you've been in Ridgefield west of I-5 on Pioneer, you see Rose Hours as the anchor of Discovery Ridge. This was one of my first projects. Actually, I started the board as an intern many years ago, and we assembled that property over time from a number of farmers, from Eli Kassab, who was going to build a movie theater, from the failed Bank of Clark County. So over time, we assembled a very large assemblage there. The original plan was for a business park or an office park, and that was what the port was planning to do. But of course, Ridgefield was suffering from not having a grocery store. We were approached by a number of folks in the community and said, hey, this is a real need. There's nowhere to get our groceries in Ridgefield. We have to drive down to Salmon Creek. We have to drive up to Woodland, and we really need a grocery store. Port's not really in the grocery store business. That's not what we do, but it was a need. And so the elected commission made the decision to go ahead and kind of reallocate that property for retail development. And then worked with the developer. They brought in the grocery store, and now we have Le Schwab and a number of other things in there as well. Yes.
When you say reallocate, does that mean you still own the land and you just got like a 90-year lease or something like that?
No, we did sell. Okay. Yep. So we did sell it. Next slide. The Ridgefield Industrial Park, you're familiar with that. So I-5 and Pioneer, really that would be the southwest quadrant where Pepsi is, used to be Corwin Beverage, all the industrial employers in there. That was one of the port's first projects in the 1980s and 90s. It's almost entirely built out at this point. That was another one that we did follow that model of setting up the industrial park, building the roads, putting in the utilities and the infrastructure, and then selling off parcels piece by piece to different industrial employers as they built their facilities. Next slide. Tri-Mountain Golf Course. This was a port project in the 1990s. So the Port of Ridgefield did develop Tri-Mountain Golf Course, again, responding to requests. I think looking back, it may have been a little ahead of its time because it kind of financially struggled for a long time. Right now, it's actually, the county's got it and they're doing great with it. The casino has helped, as you can imagine. It's probably a great place to have the golf course. Finally, in the 90s, it was a bit of a stretch to make it pencil out. So that was one the port developed and ultimately did sell to the county to operate, and they do so. And next slide. Wisdom Ridge Business Park. This is one of our latest developments we've done. Smaller. You know how Clark County is essentially become more and more parcelized. You can't find a 100-acre piece of land anymore to do a big industrial park. So what you're seeing is more properties like this. So 10 acres, a few buildings. We have two 20,000 square foot buildings on the left with 4 tenants in there. And then on the right, we have the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife Regional Headquarters that we lease to them. They're one of our tenants. Yes.
So when the port, so this is right by us, right? And so when you are developing something like this, I'm so curious if you have other priorities around the development. This is a great example of I wish that there was a dark sky initiative associated with this development. There are very bright lights pointing right up into the sky. Yeah. And I would love if the Port of Ridgefield was more focused on also making sure that a development like this matched our surroundings, or looked more rural, had concerns about the industrial lighting, had solar on those big roofs. I think this is a place where we would love for you to be more engaged in the community and talking with us about what we would want this development to look like.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. And absolutely, those are all things we care about. City of Ridgefield does have a dark skies ordinance, which we do follow when developing anything like this. So I'd really be curious about your observations because, I don't necessarily see what you're describing, but again, we've always tried. If anybody knows the late Sidney Reisdick formerly from Audubon, Sidney was my good friend, and for a number of years, we worked on a bird-friendly design guidelines down at the waterfront because we're right next to the refuge. And Sidney was really concerned about impacts to wildlife. And so that was something that we adopted, those design guidelines, and they're always improving. So we would absolutely be 100% open to that. So.
And that's one question. In the beginning, I missed what you said. I understand this is the downtown proper Ridgefield. But for Ridgefield, it goes down through the Salmon Creek there, and that little, are we also going that direction to discuss?
Yeah, we will, because a big part of that tax increment area is kind of that 179th to 219th and that 10th Avenue corridor. But these are kind of our past projects. And next slide. And of course, we built the Pioneer Street Rail overpass. If you've been downtown Ridgefield, the waterfront, that was the first project I ever worked on, working at the port. $17 million and over 10 years to build 3 phases. Very complicated project, great project with life safety benefits. Previously, you could access the waterfront via 2 at-grade crossings. So you drive drive the road across the tracks. One of those was the 5th most dangerous crossing in the state. Actually, myself and my coworkers witnessed a pedestrian fatality with a train at work, which is a horrible thing to experience. We've now got the rail line there fenced off. Kids can't get down there. Kids can't, cross the tracks or get in any trouble, and you have to go over with the overpass. So that was one that we did get in. That opened late 2021. Next slide. So
And the reason I show you those is because now we're going to talk about the things we're going to try to do with the tax increment area. There's a number of objectives. I'm not going to read 2 pages of bullet points to you, but the elected commission basically set about 10 different kind of policy goals, like things we're trying to do with the this funding tool that we've got. So, obviously job creation, economic development, economic activity, those are really the mission of the port. So you'll see a lot of language about that. And then the second page here, high wage, value added jobs, develop properties along I-5, along 10th and elsewhere, rebuild the waterfront, develop properties in downtown with the vision. Next slide. So this is the Ridgefield waterfront, going back. I know this is after 1971 because 71 was the year I was born. And that's the year, if you've been down there, that pump house that's out on the river, that kind of fallen down old structure in the middle of the river, that's when it was built. So this, it does show up in the picture. You see Pacific wood treating at the height of operations here with clean lumber coming in. That's the white wood over there. Moved through the site. They were making telephone poles and railroad ties, a lot of creosote, a lot of very harsh chemicals. You see the tanks of the chemicals here. So you'd move a telephone pole, you'd put it into one of these tubes, you'd pressure treat it. So you'd cap it off and fill it full of creosote, pressure treat it. And then you see the marks on the ground where the stuff was wet and dripping chemicals as it would come out and then was stacked on the site, the much darker wood. And then that was sent out either via train or via truck for many, many years. So it was one of the great, it was kind of the job center for North Park County. If you had a job down at PWT, those were some of the best blue collar jobs around. You could support your family. It was a great place to work. See all the workers lined up down here at the Ridgefield waterfront for their work. A ton of activity. Next slide. This is how the port looked when I came to work there. We were about halfway through the environmental cleanup, so some of the buildings were tore down, some of the industrial buildings are remaining. That white structure in the middle, that's a tent for the steam cleaning operation. That took probably 23 years and $90 million of state funds. It was the biggest environmental cleanup in the state at the time. Essentially what we're doing when I say steam is we had creosote in the ground, and at room temperature, it's pretty hard, it doesn't move. So we had 2 sets of wells, and we had wells that would push hot steam into the ground. And then we had a second set of wells that would pull the water out of the ground with the contaminants in it, to the heated up water, and then filter those out and essentially wash the groundwater. Yes.
How does that compare with Hanford?
It's different because it's nuclear there, and they're not necessarily filtering anything there. They're encapsulating things.
Because you said it was the most expensive, and I know like Hanford went through a huge thing at one point. I don't remember when.
Yeah, it's still going.
And it's still, yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just curious if you had like dollar comparisons or if you knew.
No, I don't, because that's federal, but right now, with inflation, there are a couple bigger cleanup projects in the state. But at the time, in the early 2000s, this was the most expensive one. So just to give you an idea, when it's snow in Ridgefield and I drive down to work, as soon as I cross the railroad tracks, the ground would be bare. Because it was like if you have those fancy bathrooms with heated floors, that's what the entire Ridgefield waterfront was like. Our natural gas bill was $500,000 a month.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was for years. That's what you had to do. It was intense. Next slide. And then this shows the
cost in comparison to Hanford. Hanford is in the billions of dollars, and in fact, the feds are underfunding it by at least $1 billion. So it's orders of magnitude difference between the two.
Yeah, I figured.
maybe the biggest non-nuclear cleanup.
Okay.
I'll caveat that next time. And here's the site today. We've essentially cleaned up the site. It's not clean, but it's safe. That's an important distinction that state likes to make. We got as much contaminants out of the ground as we could feasibly get out. We dug out the rest and hauled it away to a landfill for contaminated materials. And then we capped the whole site in clean soil from, if you remember in 2009, when Ridgefield got the new freeway interchange, we got about 2 million cubic yards of clean soil from WashDOT. As part of that project, they were looking for somewhere to get rid of a bunch of dirt, and we had a great place for them. So we cleaned everything off. We we laid down a barrier, a fabric barrier, and then we covered it in at least 2 feet of clean soil. It's about 16 feet in some places where we dug it out, but it's capped. And it is safe for human health and the environment. So that's where we are right now. It is, however, no longer the employment center in North Clark County. Nobody's working there, and we had to tear down all the port buildings. We had to rip out the roads, rip out the infrastructure, all the utilities, and all that. So what we'd like to say is that it's a blank canvas, but it is very, very blank because we had to rip out everything there. So that's probably the biggest project that we're looking at. Next slide.
A question before you move on.
Yeah.
As you're talking about developing from a construction perspective, are you driving piles into the ground? And any issues with what you just described?
There's a 2,449-page document that the consultants prepared for us called the Comprehensive Operations Maintenance Plan, which is essentially the big book of rules for working in the contaminated dirt. So there are special rules when they get down below that clean soil. Depending on the kind of building, they may not need pilings if it's just single story or maybe 2-story. But if it's going to be anything bigger, the engineers tell us that you have to do piers. You have to build it on piers down there. Yes.
Can you go back one slide?
Sure. Let's go back.
Where is the 100-year flood mark in this map?
Sure. So we raised the whole property out of the floodplain as part of the environmental remediation we did. So essentially, floodplain is about halfway up the beach, and then it goes up the edge of the parking lot, in the boat launch, and over here in Mill Street. So the entire site was lifted up out of the floodplain, mostly because you wouldn't want those you would not want a bunch of flood action mobilizing those things that we don't want to mobilize. So excellent. There we go. So part of doing a tax increment area is when you adopt one of these, you have to talk about all the projects they're going to do or want to do with the funding that may come in over the next 25 years. They also, because of the legislation, the list tends to be overly broad because you're not required to do everything on the list, but you can't do something if it's not on the list. So you need to try to list out everything you think you're going to do or the next 25 years of elected board commissioners and staff will want to address. So a lot of this we've categorized into three chunks here. One of them is rebuilding the waterfront, and then we list off a bunch of different things that we may do with the waterfront. Obviously, replacing that infrastructure that we ripped out. The first goal has been a waterfront park. We're partnering with the city of Ridgefield on the planning of a waterfront park that never used to be a public space. You can imagine it was very industrial. You get ran over by a forklift if you try to go down there. But we really want to make this, kayaking is a huge thing for Ridgefield. We've also put this trail system in. You walk right out onto the refuge trail system, connects to that. So we definitely want to keep the public component to this, but and expand on that. Parking, buildings, day docks. We do want to, if you're familiar with Clark County Clark Cowlitz Fire and Rescue, they have their fireboat house there. It is, however, it's attached to McCuddy's Marina, which is probably the thing most likely to catch fire in Ridgefield on the water. So for a long time, we've talked that maybe there's a better place to put the fireboat than on the thing that's going to catch fire. And then the sheriff's Marine Patrol, they do a great job. They don't have a home on the water, so I think they keep their boat in a fenced lot in Rush Prairie. So when there is a marine emergency, they've got to go hook up to it, bring it out here, and throw it in our boat launch. Yes.
Is there a connection between this waterfront park and the North Wildlife Refuge as well as the South Wildlife Refuge?
Yeah, actually just the north, not the south. So yeah, Cardi Lake and the Cardi unit. Yes.
Extended to the south?
No, because you would have to go through, there's no way to do that geographically.
Okay.
So there's McCuddy's Marina is to our south, and that's private property. So anyhow, number of projects here on the waterfront. We can go to the next slide. The other category of enhancements we've talked about using TIF funds for is downtown small business facilities, what we're calling the Railroad Avenue facility, which is a strip of land on the other side of the tracks from the waterfront, where we want to have a landing site for a pedestrian bridge, parking lot, and EV charging, and then also mitigation. We want to be able to fund mitigation to some of the agencies that are impacted, and we'll talk about those impacts in a moment. And then last one, new small business facilities. This is, so if you think of that, the picture I showed you, Wisdom Ridge of that business park, those are probably going to be the kinds of facilities we're looking at doing around here in the southern part of the tax increment area. Yes.
You talked about bringing in employment. Would port funds be used for things like RV parking and storage facilities? I know there's the demand for it, but those have very few employees with a large amount of land. So it does not provide a lot of employment benefits.
So I can't speak for future elected commissioners, but my elected commissioners entirely agree with you and see no need for taxpayer funds to be spent on something like that. There's just not a lot of benefit. Again, you know, public agency, elected officials, you know how elected officials are, it's very true. But don't know what the folks will do in the future. But for right now, our elected commission has no interest. Yeah.
Then you also talked, Mo mentioned earlier the light pollution in terms of the refuge and so on. Once you develop the property, can you then go, is it then sold off so you have no more control, or can you go back to that place and ask them to turn off their bright lights at night, or maybe put them on motion detectors, or maybe change to more red hues rather than blue hues, which don't affect the birds? Or once you develop it, it's out of your hands completely?
So the port is not, where we differ from like a city or a county is we're not a regulator. We can't regulate anything. We have no power to. Now, if I sell you a building, I could perhaps, or if I lease you a building, obviously I can control the things you do in the building I'm leasing to you. If I sell you a property, we could put things in the covenants governing what you could do in the future. So it's a little bit different because we're not regulating things, but just as any other seller or any other landlord, we do have the ability to do some of what you're talking about, some sort of controls.
Are there plans to do that?
We had, for example, there's, I think, actually, like the Discovery Ridge is a good one. The property we sold to Peace Health is a good one, where we have restrictive covenants, and we put those in all of our transactions.
Thank you.
So you bet. Next slide. So here's another part of doing a tax increment area is they say estimate, and that's the word, estimate how much these projects are going to cost and how much the tax increment funds are going to fund them. We have, like I told you, this is the bigger list. I am almost certain that the port will not be able to accomplish all of these in the next 25 years. The project list is bigger, but we didn't want to leave anything out because we didn't want to box in those future port commissions and not give them the ability to fund a project because it wasn't on the list. So it is overly broad. You see estimated year of construction, estimated project costs, and then the TIA funding share. That's how much of that would be funded via the funds through the tax increment funding. So you see about $22 million there is what would be generated from the tax increment area. It's an estimate over the next 25 years.
I have a question. I don't know if
Yes.
it's the appropriate time or not, but I know that the news that's out there is the in and out coming up by that interchange. Are you guys the ones that are going to give them the permission to do it or not?
No,
You're
so
part of that.
yeah, so we we don't regulate anything. That's in the city of Ridgefield, and that's the city of Ridgefield has a tax increment area that they've already established that includes all of that, Costco and In-N-Out Burger and all of that. If you think of our port district, the 98642 zip code, the city of Ridgefield, who went first and established their tax increment area, it's kind of like the chunk right out of the middle, like the hole in a donut. Like it's basically the properties around the I-5 interchange in Ridgefield. So ours, you see, doesn't include any of those areas because they were already taken by the city of Ridgefield. Yes.
So 22 million over 25 years. And so that would be coming from the properties over here, but it sounds like mostly financing Ridgefield waterfront. Is that right?
What we don't know is which projects we're gonna do and which ones we won't. We don't know how much they'll cost, and a couple things. So this will actually raise $45 million is the estimate in the report over 25 years, but that's gonna come in over 25 years. So what a lot of jurisdictions do is they bond revenue. So you could take $45 million in revenue over 25 years and bond it for $22 million. And we show going out to the bond for bonding in like 2027 or 2028.
Yeah, so I'll just go back to my prior concern. The roads here need a lot of work. There's no sidewalks or street lights or anything, so I'm really potholes too. Yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how that's actually gonna impact the infrastructure around here that needs to be built out.
Sure. Bear with me. We have a slide for that. Next slide. So here's one more slide showing essentially like kind of like what you saw before. There's a little difference here in that you'll see we've kind of divided it into 3 chunks. And so essentially this would be that $45 million. And as you can see, most of it, a lot more comes in at the end than at the beginning as you know, things increase in value over time. And then other districts, this isn't, other states have tax increment financing where all the taxes are capped and all the new growth goes to the tax increment area. When Washington State set this up, they exempted some things, specifically schools, the state schools fund and local school levies. So a silver lining to all of this is that the school districts in the state schools fund, they get the benefit of the growth and the development and the extra tax revenue, and they're not impacted. So unfortunately, that means the other jurisdictions that weren't so lucky have to lift more because not all the taxes are included in that. Next slide. And this is a different chart. This is the same information as the chart before. Chief John Knorr from Clark College Fire and Rescue specifically asked me to change one of our slides because it wasn't necessarily clear in the previous slide that the state says taxes are capped, but actually they do shrink a little to the jurisdictions, and I can't even repeat why because it's kind of some arcane tax assessment. They've explained it to me, but I still don't understand. So it doesn't actually stay totally the same. There is a reduction over time. Before then, the revenue shoots up at the end of the sunset period of the tax increment. But this is literally the same data as on the previous slide, but they're not stacked on top of each other.
Question?
Yes.
Sorry for all the questions.
No, I love it.
Schools are exempted. From what I understand, libraries and the fire department is not. And if these funds go to the port, then a certain proportion of those funds are coming from the libraries and fire department. So how do we know that the fire department isn't going to get decimated or they can't upgrade their equipment? How do we know that the libraries won't be able to buy new books and we're still dealing with 2020 books in 2030?
Sure. There absolutely will be impacts to all the affected jurisdictions, including us. The port loses money to the TIA because the port has a tax levy too. The county does, the library district does, all the fire districts do. So yes, there will be less. There's no sugarcoating this. If we're not raising taxes on you, but we're getting taxes, someone else is losing taxes.
So do we get to vote on this, or does some governmental, quasi-governmental society like the Port District make this decision for us?
So the way the state legislature set this up is for a city, a county, or a port, it's what's called council madam. And that's where the county would be the county council that sets one of these up and you don't vote, or the city council or the port commission. So they enact one of these. So like the city of Ridgefield adopted a tax increment area. And now the port's looking at that.
So
the council
basically,
had a
the
decision.
three port commissioners are making this decision for the residents. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you, before we run out of time, could you elaborate on what your plans are around I-5 and 179? Because I know a lot of things has gone into the waterfront, but I don't think we have any clear understanding of what the investment would be in infrastructure and what job creating activities will occur.
Sure. And real quick, Randy, just because you mentioned time, you have 5 minutes. But
Okay. All right, we're gonna keep moving. And those will come up. Next slide. This is a little bit about that 45 million of total funds equals 22 million bonded. Next slide. This is where, this is essentially a pie chart of where those taxes are coming from. So you mentioned the library district, the county, the city, the fire district, the port, Clark Heights Fire and Rescue District 6, the Park District. So yeah, so those are the ones. Next slide.
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Wait,
There we go.
did that say there's forecasted lift? Is that what?
So this is a slightly different version of the pie prepared at the request of the fire districts to show the difference if over the next 25 years, the fire districts run a series of levy lid lifts over the next 25 years. So as you can imagine, since it's a percentage of the taxes, if the taxes change over the next 25 years, the amount changes. So that is correct. Next slide.
The fire districts get a veto power over over how much money the port takes from the fire district?
Nobody gets a veto power. There's mitigation required for negative impacts. So there is that, but there's not a veto power.
So to answer that a little more clear on that, when this law went into effect, this is very concerning, the long-term impacts to your junior taxing districts.
Yeah. Like the fire department.
We went to legislature this year. One of the things was adoption of junior taxing districts being able to opt out. The legislature did not approve that in the legislation that we put forward. However, they did make some changes requiring mandatory mitigations, whereas before it was up to the entity implementing this on the junior taxing districts to voluntarily do one or not. They didn't have to do anything, and they can unilaterally, their governing board, vote to enact this. So the EMS levy that folks who live on the CCFR side of this boundary, last year, you guys all voted specifically for EMS to get paramedic service, to get this station fully staffed, and we officially got fully staffed as of October.
They can't parasitize that money.
That baseline now, the fire district is frozen for the next 25 years at today's rate in 6 years and without mitigations. And the court has committed to doing some mitigations. We haven't worked through those details yet. Without mitigations, all future lid lifts and tax revenue, the renewal of the EMS levy all goes toward these tips. And it's not just the Port of Ridgefield, like you said, it's the city of Ridgefield. CFR in my area alone can be up to 12 of these tax increment finance areas can be implemented over our fire district. And that impacts the citizens because all this development will create more growth, more calls, and it will create an impact. So we are concerned about the long term. Now the court has committed to us. I want to give Randy full due credit and his board have committed to provide mitigations on this, and we are actively in those conversations. We don't know how they look yet, but we're taking them at face value that they're going to mitigate and make this right.
The philosophical question that I have is this taking public money to support private business? And if we believe in capitalism, why aren't the businesses paying for their own infrastructure? Why do the taxpayers have to pay for a private business?
That was a couple questions, but the answer is no. It's not paying for private business.
But what happens though, is the fire district's gonna have to come back to the public for more money because it's going into your system. So again, we're financing the thing a roundabout way because they're not gonna be able to support themselves.
Yeah, the revenue raised by a TIF is coming from all those other impacted jurisdictions. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Let's see that go up to a vote.
And it just told the legislature, our state legislature approved this. Randy mentions that we're one of the last states to get it, but we're also one of the most regressive tax states in the nation. We do not have a progressive tax system within our state. And the 1% limitation and all that is very challenging for government agencies to operate under. And he's right. We are the second to the last state to get it, but there's probably a reason we're second to last because our state tax system is horrible.
And we'll just, there's a few more slides, but we're almost done. We're going to go through. So again, we talked about the school districts not impacted. A little bit of good news there. The foregone revenues. One way to look at this, and again, this is one of those kind of philosophical policy things, is that the forecasts that we use to generate lost revenue. So you have an economist, and they look at two scenarios, and what is a baseline? So it's without the investment in that infrastructure, and then the other one is with the investment in the infrastructure. And so we can go through and see these. So that's basically the difference. So you're showing the baseline, then you're showing with the projects. And then I think there's one more, is there another? Yeah, so that basically shows the difference. So, and I'm not even going to go through these. We'll make the full report available. This quantifies construction jobs, permanent jobs, temporary jobs, all of that. Process. Here's a little bit about the process. You see the Port Commission and staff there. Let's go through the next slide. So we did just get the review back from the State Treasurer's Office, so that's kind of late breaking. Outreach to the impacted taxing jurisdictions and districts. We've done at this point almost all of that, except for the city of Ridgefield. And there's a timeline there that shows really that timeline. So I think right now the commission scheduled this for adoption on their April 10th meeting, or for consideration for adoption. So that's where we're at there. And there we go. So I'm sure you have more questions, but I also know there's time limits, so I'll just be respectful.
I'm still not clear on what you're proposing on I-5 and 170.
So those would be, and there was a slide there, basically like facilities like the Wisdom Ridge Business Park, where we buy some land and we build some buildings. So it's appropriate with the zoning. But you'd see light industrial or commercial. Everything we do is like, we get no special treatment because we're a government agency. So it's just whatever the county, in this case, zones land for, and whatever they say can be built there is what we can build there. So that it's no different than if a private party was going to build something there. We don't get a pass because we're a government.
Will there be sidewalks and bike?
Yeah, the county requires sidewalks and bike lanes and all those things. Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, Whipple Creek comes out there, and the condos in the or Whipple Creek condos right there, and then there's the meadows, and as we move forward down to fifth, there's a lot of traffic pulling in and out of that. And when the meadows community was built, it's so far back up the road, we have such a wide lane to turn there, that you almost have to go halfway into the street to even see beyond that corner. And if there's a lot of people coming from University Place, Meadows, Trail, and all the way to get past all that stuff.
Sure.
And it's
it would be no different than if anybody else was building.
Do you know if there's some sort of infrastructure for light?
Yeah, the county has all sorts of rules for that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Complicated thing, trying to sandwich it in 40 minutes. There's my email, there's my phone number. Please feel free to reach out. Again, I know this is kind of dense information and not the most fun, and it is concerning, and we won't lie. I do think it's an accurate representation that we have acknowledged to the fire districts, to the library district, and to others that there will be impacts. We're going to be a good partner. We're going to mitigate. We always have. We're not going anywhere. We're the port. We're going to be here 100 years from now, so we're going to continue working with our partners agencies.
Thank you, Randy.
May I share the slides on our website? Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll have this on the website. Maybe we should always share these. I guess we don't normally. Usually they don't have good information, and they just have the the run of the meeting. But we'll definitely share this one. So thank you, Randy. Really appreciate that. I want to check in with our vote counting volunteers or,
So I have a question for you.
yeah, fire away.
If a candidate was not voted on, but the other candidates were voted on, is that still the votes that are full votes on the ballots and for that particular individual, does that still count as your majority?
I don't understand the question. Yeah.
Okay, you have one ballot that does not have one of those people listed, they do not vote for that person.
It's abstaining.
But
It's under vote.
It's not in the denominator, it's not in the numerator, so it's totally ignored.
Yeah. It's just an undervote.
I probably amateur is even, but it's parliamentarians. It's counted as a vote.
I'm just not sure. Is there a mark by a name or is there not a mark by a name?
This doesn't affect the voting, this is, but in future.
Okay, yeah, we can work through it. So do our votes work though? Did we elect our folks? Yes. Okay. Okay, good.
Everybody who
Was listed.
Yeah. So I had on here before resident announcements, an amphitheater update. Is that not?
It wasn't on there.
Oh, I must have forgot to put a slide in. That's okay. But I don't know if he's here anyway. Is Rodney online? Or I don't see him in the room, and I didn't see him online. So
I don't see a Rodney online.
is there anybody here from the amphitheater online under a different name right now? Okay, I'll reach out to them. Then, so it is resident announcements. Actually, we had a few folks who wanted to speak about something. Sue, what did you want to say first?
I just, since dark skies came up, I just wanted to let you know that a majority of the council directed the staff to come up with a code for dark skies. And it hasn't come back to us, so I'll follow up on that and keep you posted.
Great.
Do they want input on that?
Well, we have to write up a code and then, yes, there'll be a public hearing.
And I know that Dave and Dean asked me in advance if they could speak during this time. Dave, I think that was you, right? Is that true? You're the Dave who was, okay, great. So let's go ahead.
This is dealing with the dark skies, this is what mentioned. With the Adventist Church across the street, we are in the process of upgrading our parking lot lights. And so we're looking at different options, and currently we're looking at motion sensors. So that would be from dusk till dawn, 40%, any motion, they went up to 100%. So, and then of course we have the option of just having it on a time clock, turn it on, turn it off, it's totally dark. We have to watch our shed. We've got a $10,000 riding lawnmower in there, and we've had some break-ins. So that's part of the reason for upgrading the lights. And then we're having more and more activities after dark. This is a problem from the community because we want to be a good neighbor. For us to do the motion sensor 40% on from dusk till dawn, and then because we want to look at the dark sky. I don't know if we do have an ordinance or an initiative here, but as a good neighbor, we want to be compliant.
Nice.
The Audubon Society has good information, and if you contact them, they can advise you. There are light shields that point the light down. There's LEDs that are more on the red side than the blue side.
These are LEDs pointing straight down. So there's really, and we're spending a significant amount of money.
Thank you.
To do this.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to get some input.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Dean, I'm calling you out, even though you raise your hand, because you emailed me. Did you wanna speak a little bit about what we emailed about or no at this point?
I'm not saving.
No worries, I wanted to give you the chance. Steve, you emailed me as well. Did you want to go ahead and speak about what you want?
First, coming back to the amphitheater, you talked about hanging tags. What's a hanging tag? Is
Yeah.
it like a hanging chad?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You don't get counted. The hang tag is a thing. It was in that conditional use permit from 20+ years ago, actually. But it was never done. And it said that residents in the area should be able to get hang tags that they put on their mirror, right? That says, hey, I live here, please let me through if you can. And so, and we're doing it, yay! So, you know, practically, I'm hoping it will do something for folks. I don't want folks to get upset if it doesn't too much, right? Obviously, we're gonna be counting on those people out there in the middle of the road who have a kind of dangerous job directing traffic to see it, right? When we flash our lights and to have a lane open to get you through. But they're gonna do their best to get folks moving around the amphitheater traffic. So that was.
Are those traffic controlling people? Are they part of the sheriff's department? Or are they part of the amphitheater employees? Or are they a hired third party?
Gosh, I don't know for sure. Yeah, I mean, they are, but they know they're managed by amphitheater.
So the amphitheater gives them instructions and.
For sure, they have, yeah, for sure. Mhm.
I don't think that CCSO as much as it is Washington State.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I think it's supposedly a combination of them, right? Because WashDOT does, or the state patrol does the interstate, right? But then it's on to 179th, which is county, right? So yeah, Steve.
Yeah, so years ago, when the amphitheater came in, we had problems getting to church. And so they finally gave us tags that the members of our church could have, and that alleviated the problem.
Great.
They worked with us very well.
So they did do it.
They did do it,
know that.
and yes, they appreciate it.
Question about the field out there. It's my understanding, it could be wrong, but it's my understanding that when that was willed by the private party, it was to be for the community and so forth. And so the amphitheater manages the amphitheater aspect and all it's over there, but this area over here where it's grass and behind the flyer and all that, that is community, like community park, not affiliated to the amphitheater. It's rented.
Are you asking?
So I'm asking, do you guys handle the park area back here aside from the amphitheater, or?
Well, we don't handle any of it, right? So I think it's all owned by the county and the amphitheater's leased.
Right.
Right, okay. And so, but I don't know, does anybody in here know how that's managed?
I'll find out.
Yeah,
The only
great.
reason I'm
We
asking
love Mary Lou.
is we tried to get through as well, living over, 164. So there's no reason for, say, a person to drive and pay for parking when you could just walk in, give your ticket, I'm here for the shop.
Oh, I see.
And the people who, like I said, the subcontractors, people in here are just young kids and they don't know better probably, but they wouldn't let us through because they said you had to pay to park. We're not going through the park.
Oh, that's a perfect
And they
thing
won't let us through. And then they put the fences in and they said, because we're trying to keep everyone out, it's now private. Like, no, it's not. It's a county park.
Yes.
So you're talking about the access from 164th to the amphitheater, right?
Yeah, they're anywhere other than
Yeah.
driving in.
Yeah,
So
so
walk into the park.
gotcha. So that access, number one, they want to know about stuff like that because they want to make things more fluid for
Right.
residents, right? So let's talk.
Yeah.
Number two, that 164th entrance they're using for emergency vehicles and VIP, which generally means folks who are disabled or things like that. And so, so that might be, yeah.
No,
But
but
this is
there's
like-
the path trail, there's just a trail to go between the two, the actual community park, and then to the back side where the flyers are and all that big land over here.
Gotcha. I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
that aware of
But
it.
that would be up in the question.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good one. If you're saying the amphitheater folks are the ones who said you can't come
It's
through,
the
right?
kids
So,
who are holding up the flags, monitoring the traffic.
Yeah.
in.
yeah. So, yeah, they just don't know. And it's the thing where if we tell amphitheater management, maybe they'll say, bring your hang tag. Right? I mean, this is where it's kind of, yeah.
I believe it was closed off because kids were using it and.
This is a good question. So how do we plan to distribute the hang tags? So we are going to, well, we talked about this, it's not planned yet. But 99% sure this is what we'll do, is have a event at the amphitheater. We were gonna do the fairgrounds. And they said, well, why don't you guys just come here? Just come on in and come into our lobby. We'll have some snacks, stuff like that. Hop on in, grab a hang tag. So part of the reason is we want to get them in hands before April. The other part is we don't want them just blanket the world. We don't want to send out 25,000 of them.
Driver's license.
So, yeah. Yeah, driver's license is fine. I mean,
But the people coming to those events don't have to live in this community. They could be from anywhere buying a ticket to see a
people
concert.
getting, it won't be that, It'll be our own little thing. It'll be a tiny little thing, me and maybe the neighborhood association folks standing in there with Amphitheater folks for a couple of hours. Here's how you can come get it. If you can't make it, let us know, we'll try to put it in hand. The reason we're doing that, it'll be available at the May meeting, but the reason we're doing that in April is we don't want people to wait until May. We're trying to create some kind of ability to get that in advance. And I think our May meeting is virtual only. That's right. That was the other piece of it too. So, but they're open if anybody who emails and says we want one can get one. So we are trying to be careful with it. I don't want it to immediately become a problem where all of the wrong people have these things.
Right.
Right. And so we are trying to manage how we're getting them in hands, but we want to get them in all of your hands.
All I'm thinking is
Yeah.
somewhere between the amphitheater representatives
Yeah.
and the Clark County Park area of it, you know, where they are renting, is not part of their supervision area, and they're restricting people just walking. If you buy a ticket to a concert, you should just be able to walk in the concert or pay to park or what. It doesn't matter if you're dropped from the sky. If you're standing there in front, you have your ticket. You should be able to go in and see the event.
Well, you can though,
Yeah.
just not the door you choose.
Well,
And that's a different story.
park, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
It's a
so
public park. They control the amphitheater, two separate entities.
we can talk about that offline, maybe, and I would talk about that with them. I'm sure I'm not here to defend the amphitheater. They have their own reasons for doing stuff. And like I said, they are open to hearing about our ideas. So they might say, you know what, we love it. Let's do that. They may do that. Yeah. Any other resident announcements tonight? Yeah, go ahead.
Got a resident, real quick, spoke earlier. I'm Ben Healer, I'm Assistant Chief with Clark County Fire Rescue. So through your area right here is, of course, on the north side, 179 is Clark County Fire Rescue. On the south side is Clark County Fire District 6, with the exception of a sliver that's on the north side. There are some on the north side of District 6. So like you mentioned, this station now is staffed full-time as of October. There's a 24/7 crew here. We got there, and several of you guys were very instrumental in making that happen and driving that, keeping that at the forefront of how important it was to this community. So thank you guys for seeing that through, keeping that front and center. Just so you know, since October, since it's full-time staff, this unit here has ran 483 calls, so we're averaging about 96 calls a month out of the station right here, which is a solid number for response out of the station. So thank you, and as always, if you have any questions to the fire district, either district, District 6 or CCFR, get in contact with us, and we'll make sure we get you guys the answers and stuff. So
Thank you so much. And with that, I think we're late. We just need a couple 10 minutes extra. Thank you folks for being with us on there. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Seconded, looks like it's seconded, and a vote to adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned, folks. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, overseas stuff. So we try to get, you know, people to mailers, it's always So we are gonna be eating on February 4th. So like Andrew mentioned,